First of all, thank you to all of you for carving time out and joining us this evening on a beautiful summer evening. What that really says to me is that taking care of your wellness and taking care of your Parkinson's is really important to you, and so that is good to hear. I really believe that people who are living with chronic conditions are actually the experts in many ways. And from working with people with Parkinson's and their families, I learn and I benefit from your lived experiences. And so tonight's content is certainly a little bit from me, but it's actually mostly the result of the lived experiences of fellow YOPDers, the lessons that they have learned from living with Parkinson's disease and that they have shared with me. When I started to think about tonight's talk and the order of it, do I start with work and then family and then health because work really impacts family and health? Or do I start with health because that really affects family and work? And I very quickly realized that these things are all very interconnected and there wasn't really any common sense order to start in. So I decided I will start talking about work and then family and then health, in all under this umbrella of how do you balance all of these things. And I think you might hear some similar messaging in each of those topic areas. And again, that just kind of really reconnects to that idea that there is such interconnectedness between these areas of your life. I'm going to take a break in between each of those topic areas, and that will be an opportunity to make some comments or ask some questions, but also hopefully there will be some time at the end for questions as well. Again, not knowing who's in the audience, there may be some people here who are newly diagnosed, people who are working, people who are not working, people who have kids, people who don't have kids. There may be care partners. So, I'm just hoping that each of you will walk away with a pearl or two. I think that is my beginning. So let's get started. So we'll start with this topic around work and PD. So your work journey with Parkinson's disease is a very individual one that takes into consideration many different factors depending on your situation. And that's why I kind of refer to it as being a bit of a boutique experience. It is really unique to you. So there are a number of different things to consider in it. There's financial considerations. Can I afford to stop working? What kind of long-term benefits do I have? What are my current expenses? What are my future expenses? There's also that sense, your sense of identity that factors into your work. So I am a doctor, I am a nurse, I am a lawyer, and that sense of self-worth that might be attached to your role in society or to your ego. What am I worth if I'm not working? There's some real strong, not great societal messaging around that. Your job might be something in which you have a legal duty, depending on your job where your judgment is critical to the well-being of others. So someone who might be a school bus driver, judgment is very important because you now have the lives of other people in your hands. So that's kind of a consideration. And for others who don't really love their job a whole lot, the impact of PD may be an opportunity to make a change. For many, there's a decision as to whether or not to disclose the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And again, this is a very individualized decision, depending on perhaps the type of work that you do. Maybe your PD symptoms don't present themselves in your work environment. The environment itself, are you self-employed? Are you employed by somebody? Your coworkers, are they supportive and like family? Or have they maybe been a little bit less understanding of other people who've had health conditions? Many people worry about being fired or being forced to retire early or laid off or simply being treated differently by the people that you work with, or changes in your responsibility, changes in the interactions once you've made that disclosure. And who you are and your own perspective also impacts whether or not you decide to disclose. Are you more of a private person who likes to keep your personal life out of the office, or are you kind of more open to talking about all sorts of things with your workmates? So there really are no right or wrong answers regarding work. These are just some considerations to take into account when you think about diagnose or disclosing your diagnosis at work. So people often face a variety of different challenges in performing their actual job. And again, that certainly could be because of the PD symptoms and your work tasks. For instance, I worked with somebody who was a dentist and he had a lot of tremor. Well, those two things don't go so well together. But perhaps somebody who has tremor might be able to continue teaching, because that's not, fine motor skills when you're public speaking is not as big of a deal. So it's just kind of looking at how the PD and the symptoms present itself and your work task. Nonetheless, there's multitasking or managing stress, fatigue, the physical demands of the jobs that might require dexterity, decision-making speed. So again, very individual and dependent on your work role. But regardless of those challenges, it's really important to look for changes that can be made in order to allow you to continue working. Because work really does have some very valuable benefits for people. Aside from financial benefits, it's about helping you stay physically active, socially connected, intellectually stimulated, and those are all the things that I kind of refer to as the non-medicinal ways of treating Parkinson's, the non-medicinal ways to manage Parkinson's. And so if work is becoming challenging, you might want to look at ways to make your job work for you. So that might be with some accommodations, with hours, with roles, or even the location of where you're doing your job. With COVID, and many of us are working from home, the silver lining globally has been that employers are much more open and flexible to different kinds of work options. Now, certainly there may be jobs that, simply cannot allow for such kinds of changes, such kinds of accommodations. And then that's really when creativity may need to come into play. So if you're not going to be able to continue to do your job because of the Parkinson's, and you will still really want to continue to work in some way, you can think about kind of reinventing yourself, using your skill set in another way. So you might turn a hobby or a passion or a strength that you have into a job. Some of you might be familiar with Tim Hague from Manitoba. He's a YOPD, or the Amazing Race winner, big advocate, and he's the founder of a nonprofit organization called U-Turn Parkinson's. And he's a really good example of this. So he was a nurse before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And then when he could no longer work as a nurse, he really used his very big personality to create this nonprofit business. He wrote a book. He's a motivational speaker. The person who runs Spotlight YOPD was also started by somebody with Parkinson's disease who had skills and experience in writing and in communications. And so there's really something to be said about PD and creativity. And in fact, there was recently an article about PD and the increase in creativity and creative output that has some connection in relation to changes in dopamine. And so my thought really being is, tap into your creativity and think about different solutions and think about doing things differently. But also with respect to work and the impact that not working might have on your finances, again, thinking creatively outside of the box. One of the lived lessons that I've learned from a fellow YOPDer was around how to save money or spend less. So there were suggestions around, having one car, riding bikes, using public transportation, walking more, considering a homestay student that might bring in some income, doing a house swap for vacations, or a skills swap where, perhaps the neighbor mows your lawn, but you do their taxes for them. And then, really getting kids involved. If you have kids, getting the kids involved to help with things like cleaning or yard work, tasks that you may have other previously paid for. Really everyone in the family has a role to play in living well with Parkinson's. Other options, checking out discount sites in order to make your money go a little bit further, like Groupon and dealhack.ca. There's lots of discounts there. I've listed a bunch of these things at the end, so don't feel like you need to take notes. That'll all be available to you. And even places like the art gallery that has a donation evening. Many stores have reward programs where the more you purchase, then you get money back. Things, Costco does that, the Bay, Shoppers, I think almost every big box store has some sort of a rewards program. But ultimately, I would just say be proactive. It's really never too early to plan, and start thinking about what you would do with your time if and when you were to stop working. I'll just take a break there for a second and see if there are any comments or any questions. I'll just let you tell me, Alana, if there is anything.
No, I don't see any questions in the chat box right now. So again, if you have a question at this point in the presentation, please feel free to type your question in the chat box. There's a little chat bubble at the bottom bar, and you just click on that and the chat box will expand. So while we're waiting, Elaine, I have a question that perhaps I could put out there. So how do you know when it is time to stop working?
That's such a common question that I get a lot, Alana. And what I've learned is oftentimes when a person with Parkinson's raises that question, that's often the first sign that it might be time to start considering a change. People are asking that question because they might be starting to feel challenged or stretched in a variety of different ways. For some people, work is really their identity, and it provides a tremendous amount of satisfaction. And for others, it's a real source of stress, and that might tip the scales of satisfaction with the job. And so it's really important to consider when is the right time for you to stop working for your own well-being. If work is starting to prevent you from having time to exercise or spending quality time with your family, or if you find yourself, completely depleted at the end of the week and you're using Saturday and Sunday just to refuel, those are some of the indicators that some change might be needed.
Okay, thank you.
Was there anything else, or should I carry on?
Nope, there's no questions at this time.
Okay, we will carry on to family life then. And so in thinking about family wellness, I really think about that phrase that Parkinson's disease is a family affair, because it really does impact everyone in the family. The nuclear family, which is like your spouse or your partner, your kids, your immediate family with your siblings and your parents, and your extended family members as well as, aunts, uncles, cousins, and even your pets. And while family can provide support, it also presents as a responsibility, and also sometimes many responsibilities. And it can be really challenging to manage them all. From homework to housework, the demands and obligations can be numerous. And so here are three, kind of my top three things that you can consider in order to try and maintain some balance or restore balance in the realm of family life. And when I say family life, that does not just refer to people with kids. It really does refer to your role with your parents or with your siblings or cousins or close friends who are like family as well. So those top three things to consider is taking care of yourself, revisiting expectations of family life, and focusing on what you can do. And I'm just going to expand a little bit on each of these. So taking care of yourself and everyone else will benefit. That idea when you're on an airplane and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can be able to be in your best place to help everyone else is just so true. Taking care of yourself can refer to a variety of different actions: physically, socially, nutritionally, spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, all of those things. And whatever taking care of looks for you looks like, whether it's taking time to exercise or seeing friends or asking for help in a particular area or asking for help in order for you to be able to go and take care of yourself, when you do that, you really set the tone for everybody else in your circle. You're modeling, which is often much more effective than telling people. You're modeling that it is okay and it is necessary to pursue activities that you enjoy and to take care of yourself. The family members in your bubble, and no COVID pun intended there, those family members are usually very highly sensitive to your physical and emotional well-being. And what I have heard very frequently is that it's when they see you struggling emotionally or physically, that is kind of the toughest part of the whole PD experience for them. And so for you to do what you can to take care of yourself can be very impactful on everybody else in your family and everybody else who surrounds you. Now, there are obviously sources of stress in normal daily family life, and with Parkinson's disease in the picture, those challenges certainly increase, but that's all the more reason why it's important to carve out time to take care. On an emotional level, you really want to make sure that you have the opportunities to release or empty, I should say, empty your frustration tank, your anger tank. And again, whatever that might look like, whether that's with exercise or journaling or venting to a friend or seeing a counselor. We all need to have releases for these very strong emotions in order to make room for more positive feelings and to make room for balance in your life. And once you're able to, better take care of yourself, as I said, everyone else will benefit as well because you're in a better place. And then you'll also be better able to prioritize the time to nurture important relationships with family and more, and certainly with your partner and kids as well. And often this is the first thing that tends to get pushed to the back burner. But having time and energy for your family and for your relationships really are a frequent challenge that I hear about from the young onset group. And so here are a few simple strategies, simple things for everyone in the family to incorporate into family life. Express gratitude, saying thank you for the big and the little things. You can leave thank you notes around the house, put them in a lunch bag, put it in a coffee mug, stick it on the bathroom mirror if you kind of need to be reminded that you need to say thank you, and just expressions of gratitude. We can all do that, and we all benefit from hearing them. Share with and listen to, making those intentional connections with your housemates daily about anything. It might be, somebody who you bumped into at the grocery store, or talking about a news feature or a story you heard from your neighbor, but just kind of making these intentional connections throughout the day. Share a laugh together. You know, laughter really releases all sorts of endorphins. It really is one of the best medicines. And certainly, um, in my little lessons learned there that I've heard from other YOPD folk, eating a meal together every day, sharing your highs and your lows, and hearing about everybody else's highs and lows. It's just ways to make these kind of connections. And for nurturing intimate relationships, maybe some of you have heard of Sheila Silver or Gila Bronner, both sex therapists who have worked a lot in the field of Parkinson's disease, and they really emphasize the importance of focusing less on performance, but much more on closeness and intimacy. I've got some of their YouTubes listed at the end in the resources, but I thought I might share just some of their, a few of their pearls. One of the things is really to have a conversation about what sex and what intimacy can look like, and what each of you would like, and what's going right and what's not going right, and what can you work on together. You might also want to consider making an intentional time for intimacy, scheduling it into your life. And that might no longer be at bedtime because of fatigue or family life or different things. It may be in the middle of the afternoon before fatigue sets in or before the kids get home from school. So really just looking kind of at your week and where do you think intimacy or sexual relations might be able to fit in. Think about what needs to happen in order to have intimacy in your life. So that idea of bridging time. So, consider transitioning from tasks and technology and responsibilities in order to pay attention and really be with your partner, whatever that's going to look like. And so you might even want to consider some meditation or some mindfulness or going for a walk, whatever you might need to do in order to kind of disconnect from the craziness of the day and reconnect with that person. Have fun, flirt, affirm your love for one each other, remind yourself why you fell in love in the first place. And one of the things that I've heard from people also is kiss daily. Have more than 1 minute, long hugs, that hugging for that much, that touch for more than a minute can really make a big difference. And I loved this last one that I had heard, which was this monthly anniversary. So if the anniversary that you got together was July 15th, then August 15th, September 15th, October 15th, every 15th of the month, you do something to just remind yourself. The second consideration for looking at balance in family life is this idea of revising your expectations of family life. And that means revising everyone's expectations and replacing them with more manageable kinds of activities. So really kind of accept and adapt to doing things differently. Maybe some long-standing rituals or traditions might need a little bit of tweaking. And so if you had a tradition of going to the beach every Sunday evening for a picnic, and you used to make all of the food and pack up the barbecue and all of that kind of stuff, well, maybe that switches to picking up a pizza on the way down to the beach. Or, if Christmas holidays have notoriously been held at your home and you did all of the cooking from scratch, maybe that changes into potluck. Buy the birthday cake instead of making it. It's really about finding what your new reality needs to be and living there. Remember, there is no guilt in shortening a workday or missing a soccer game or ordering in food or taking clothes right out of the dryer and not folding them. Those are all okay things as you navigate these different changes. But one care partner shared this with me, was she said that whenever something changed or she was asked to take on an extra responsibility, she said, is this sustainable? Is what I'm doing sustainable? Can I keep this up? And if it's not something that I can keep up, then changes are needed. And the third consideration in balance with family life is to really focus on what you can do. As you try to live in the present and create balance in your life, really focus on again what it is that you can do, what you have, not not focusing on what was or what has been lost. I think that there's value in processing those feelings, but moving forward on a day-to-day basis is really reminding yourself of what you can do. I actually had a patient who sent me this hand-drawn picture that she had, and it said I can in the middle, and then all around it was listed all of the things that she can do. So on a low day, she looked at this picture that she drew and kind of said, oh, okay, I can actually do still quite a lot of stuff. Sonia Mithur, some of you might know who she is. She's a PD advocate and also a fellow YOPDer. And she really talks about choosing your attitude. And, there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and the author, Viktor Frankl, he also talks about how attitude is so important, and that everything can be taken from you but one thing, and that's choosing your attitude. That is yours, and no one can take that away from you. So in any given circumstance, you can choose the way you choose to bear your burden. No one really welcomes the unpleasant challenges that Parkinson's brings. But it would be good to feel confident in knowing that you can overcome, or that you have overcome past challenges, and that you have the internal resources, or you can source out some external resources that will help you to manage whatever is going to come your way. That you'll be able to get the help that you will need, and that despite having Parkinson's disease in your family, you will all be okay. You might be different, but you can be okay. I think the other thing for the parents in the group tonight, recognize that you may not get everything right as you navigate this family road with Parkinson's disease. You might not react well, you might not behave the way you would like to, you might not make the decision that you would have. But be kind to yourself, because you may have not gotten it right even if Parkinson's disease wasn't in your life. And I can certainly vouch for that. The other thing is this concept of self-compassion. So when I say be kind to yourself, it's a bit about self-compassion. And it can be very empowering and very freeing. There's a woman named Dr. Kristen Neff who's done a tremendous amount of work in this area, and I've referenced her at the end. But basically, she advocates treating yourself with the same kind of kindness and care and compassion that you would treat somebody else with. I often say to people who are being hard on themselves, if a friend was really upset or was feeling upset about what you're feeling upset, what would you say to them? You likely would tell them that it was okay to make mistakes, that your intentions were good, that people will understand. And so it's really just about using some of that on yourself. Try some of that messaging. Words are, and the way we think about things are very impactful about how we feel and then how we behave. Letting yourself off the hook a little bit can make it easier to take care of yourself and to take care of others as well. Okay, just take another little break in between topics here. How are we doing on time? Good.
So again, if any of you have any questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat box. Elaine, I wanted to ask, how does someone with young onset Parkinson's disease navigate trying to hold it together for their family, their kids, their parents, and maybe even extended family? They may find that really challenging. So, in other words, living well can be hard when you're feeling overwhelmed. So, how might someone navigate that?
Yeah, really good question. Your family and your friends need to know how hard you're working at being normal, or as normal as you want to be. And being a superhero and being vulnerable at the same time can certainly be quite challenging for you, but it can also be very confusing for others unless you have kind of these honest, open conversations. And so, really trying to help them to understand the challenges that you're facing, and then letting them know how they might be able to help, either practically or emotionally. And letting them know is really critical. And so, it is a lot about communication. They may need direction from you. And while it might seem annoying to you to have to tell people what you need, as you would hope that they would know that, in fairness, it's really sometimes very hard for others to know what you need and when you need. So, that would probably be my recommendation for a starting point, is just really opening up those lines of communication and having some conversations.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, that.
Should I continue on then? Oh, okay.
Yes, I think you can go on. I don't see any questions.
Okay. Um, okay. So now we're going to go on to the kind of third topic, which is managing your health. And, when I think about managing your health and fitting it into this balancing act, the first thing that comes to my mind is this concept of self management. And it may seem like a bit of a buzzword, but there really is a lot of research out there that recognizes self management as a really valuable tool in the overall management of Parkinson's disease. Again, one of those non medicinal ways of managing your Parkinson's disease. And there's a lot of evidence to support that self management strategies can work towards excuse me, increasing your acceptance of changes in your physical and mental function. It can lead to improvements with pain and fatigue. It can be really valuable in improved emotional coping, and certainly can also lead to improved healthcare collaborations as well. So there are lots of different definitions out there, and self-management might mean different things to different people. But generally, an accepted definition is to learn several different techniques to better manage the various different situations that present in daily life. It's really about feeling empowered to take responsibility for your well being. There's the chronic disease self-management program is a leading practice program originally out of Stanford University, and it has really become kind of the industry standard. The program is extremely comprehensive, and from it, I've listed here some of the core self-management skills: managing PD and its symptoms, problem-solving decision-making, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and accessing the support that you need. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes on each one of these core self-management skills. So in managing Parkinson's disease, you're going to have to make decisions about when to seek medical help. You're going to need to consider different treatment options, different medications, that sort of thing. And you'll need to work with your healthcare team. But how do you equip yourself to do all of these tasks? Well, a really good starting place is to increase your health knowledge and confidence in order to become an active self-manager. Read information from reputable sites and books, and tune into reliable webinars like this one. And I've provided quite a few options at the end as well. But basically, you want to be getting better informed, and that will allow you to make good decisions going forward. And really do prepare yourself for your neurologist visit. Be really clear about what your symptoms are. So oftentimes I recommend to people that they keep a symptom diary for a few weeks leading up to the visit, so that they're really clear on what are the challenges and what are the most burning questions that you have. And I do suggest too that people come kind of with 3 burning questions that they really want answers to. You can have a few more as well, but at least know that your top 3 will get addressed. You might also want to work on building your healthcare team, because really team engagement is a must when you are dealing with a condition like Parkinson's disease. You know, that's the nurse, the occupational therapist, the physiotherapist, the social worker, the speech language therapist, a nutritionist, a massage therapist, a personal trainer, a counselor. All of those people can be part of your team. And and then really tap into their areas of expertise as you need. And also really recognize that some of those professionals might be really helpful and able to answer some of your questions or concerns that you might have in between your neurologist visits. We as healthcare professionals always recommend having somebody join you at the medical and the allied health visits. Time and time again, I have heard from the person with Parkinson's to say that it was so helpful to have a second set of ears, or it was so helpful to have somebody taking notes. These types of visits have a lot of information in them. Sometimes they can be quite emotionally charged. And so to have somebody else there who can verify or answer your questions, or did they say that, or did they say this, and having another set of ears can be really valuable. So this next core self-management skill is this idea around problem solving and decision making. That is part of our everyday life, and certainly part of living life with a chronic condition. We are solving problems on the daily. But here's just kind of a basic guideline that you might consider if you're facing a problem that you find yourself stuck in and can't seem to figure out. So one is identify the problem well. You can say, oh, I have trouble, or, that doing stairs is a problem, but in actual fact, the real problem is a fear of falling. And so the solutions might look very differently. Physically, you can do stairs, but it's this fear of falling that's causing the problem. The next thing is to list ideas to solve the problem. So you might ask yourself a key question. Can I change something about myself, something about the task, something about the environment that will improve the challenge in front of me? So if you might improve your speech by doing exercises, or you might change your chair and that will make it easier for you to get up from sitting. You might choose to wear slip-on shoes instead of shoes with laces. So just kind of brainstorm ideas to solve the problem that you've identified. And that's also a really good time to consult that team as well, because sometimes we get stuck and we can't even see a simple solution that might be right in front of us, or an expert in that field actually may have a suggestion of something that you would have never ever thought of. So do tap into to the team when you're making this list of ways to solve a problem. Then you want to pick an idea and you want to try it. Must give all new things a bit of a fair trial. New approaches do take time, and a new approach may require some tweaking as well. And then you want to evaluate it. Did your solution solve the problem? And if so, great, you're done, move on. If it did not solve the problem, go back to that ideas list and try something else. The next core skill in self-management is about taking action to maintain a healthy lifestyle with things like regular exercise, healthy eating, good sleep habits, stress management strategies. And similar to what I had talked about when I talked about taking care of yourself, but these are kind of a set of questions that might help you make a bit more formal of a plan when you're wanting to take action on something. Once you've identified an area that you want to take action, think about answering these questions. So what is it that you're going to do? How much time are you going to do it for? When will you do this activity? How often? Make sure that what you're planning to do is realistic and is a fair expectation. And when you think about that, think about it if you put it on a scale of 0 to 10, it has to be a 7 out of 10 on the doable scale. If you think about the plan and the plan, you kind of say, yeah, I think it's about a 4 that it's likely going to happen, then you need to change the plan because that's not going to be doable. Got to be at least 7 out of 10 on the doable scale. Be accountable and also reward yourself. So as an example, say what you want to do is you want to walk more. You want to walk for 30 minutes. You want to walk in the morning. You're going to do this 3 times a week. And again, is it realistic or is it not? If it's not realistic to do it 3 times a week, maybe you're going to do it twice a week. And that be accountable part is like, invite a friend or a family member to know about the plan, to be your cheerleader, and to hold you accountable. And then finally, absolutely reward yourself. We all need to have something to look forward to. We all need incentives. And the last core self-management skill that I want to talk about is accessing the support that you need. So really, accessing support involves asking for help. And a time may come when you need help in a particular area, or you may have to rely on someone else. And sometimes that can be hard, or it can be embarrassing. It can even be painful on an emotional level. And so you might need to recognize that, or you might recognize that you need help, but that you don't really want it. However, by accepting help, you will likely feel better in the end. One idea is to start with getting help with things that you really don't like to do. So, if you need help with you hate laundry and you need help with it, we'll start with that because that's going to be an easy one to get help with. The other thing is you can consider this idea of a reciprocal agreement. So perhaps somebody helps you with running errands and you make a meal for them. That reciprocating with tasks, really is a win-win for everybody who's involved. So it's really important to define the help that you need. Others can't help if they don't know what you truly would find useful. And language is really powerful here. If we say what I would find useful feels better to the individual rather than what I need help with. So even something changing up the language can make you feel more empowered. You can also look at community resources to help maintain independence and less reliance on family and friends, things like transportation services or meal prep services. It's really about that concept of accept the thing I cannot change, have the courage to change the things you can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. Take a little break here in case anybody has anything.
Elaine, I don't see any questions right now, but I did have a question. So what should one do if depression, anxiety, or apathy is making it challenging for them to do what is necessary to manage their physical well-being, and like eating well and exercising? So those kinds of things. Like, what should one do if those emotional, mental health symptoms might be interfering?
So, I think, first of all, depression and anxiety are very treatable with both with medication and non-medication types of approaches. Apathy can be a little bit trickier. It doesn't often respond that well to medication, but nonetheless, there are some strategies to manage that as well. I'm certainly not a drug pusher, but sometimes with depression and anxiety, you can really benefit from a little something that kind of just gets you to the point where you can then employ some of the strategies, some of the non-medication strategies like exercise, mindfulness, counseling, self-help reading, journaling, all of those kinds of things. So sometimes we just need a little something to get us to the point where we can then employ some other strategies. Oftentimes I hear from people that they really don't want to get addicted to such medications, or they don't want to take any more medications because they're taking enough medications as it is. But, many do use some of these kinds of medications just to kind of get through a difficult time, and then can continue on coping going forward using some of these other approaches to manage their mental health. And I think the biggest thing to remember really is that, 40 to 50% of people with Parkinson's experience anxiety or depression. And so this is really very much a part of the condition. This is not about you not working hard enough, not having a positive enough activity or attitude. This is a chemical imbalance. And so these non-motor symptoms really should be addressed in the same way that slowness of movement is addressed, and that's with medication.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Elaine. I don't see questions in the chat box. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box. And, I should also mention any comments as well. If there's something that you would like to share, that's always welcome as well. So I will leave it at that for now and let you continue, Elaine.
Okay. So regardless of Parkinson's disease, we are all faced with transitions in life where we search for meaning in life. And I think meaning is really critical as we strive for balance in our life. You need to be honest with yourself about what's important to you, and be honest with what you can and cannot do. And then make changes in order to ensure your well-being and your family's well-being. So it's really important to try to find or create joy in every day. It can be something as small as your favorite cup of coffee, or your favorite coffee shop on the way to work or on your walk. It could be 10 minutes looking at your favorite website, whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be big. Can just be small little moments of joy throughout the day. And hope is really important in coping as well. Again, the author from Viktor Frankl from Man's Search for Meaning, he writes, "He who has a why can live, I got this wrong. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And so he really talks about how meaning can allow us to continue every day living in life, whatever that meaning might be. He says that while suffering is not necessary to find meaning, meaning is certainly possible in spite of suffering. And so when we think about where we go from here, I would task each one of you to pick maybe one area in your life that you've been meaning to do something about, and take that first step. In fact, maybe next week, take a look at some of the areas that I talked about tonight, work, family, or your general health, and identify a challenge that you're having. Come up with an action plan to take those first steps. You won't regret it. And remember that part of the action plan is designating protected time to make it happen. Make it a priority. And you might even want to consider revisiting the things that you might be able to let go of in order to make room for some of these other things. Think a little bit outside of the pill box for managing your wellness. Medication is one approach to managing your Parkinson's disease, but action steps to improve and maintain your overall wellness is equally as important. I once worked with a gentleman who really embraced the role of exercise in his Parkinson's treatment, and he had protected time in his day for exercise, and he really became so regimented by it in the same way that he was with his medication. So doing these kinds of self-care actions was as important as taking his medications. I think many of you probably know about Davis Phinney, the famous cyclist and founder of Davis Phinney Foundation. He really talks about that it's not the size of the victory that matters, but it's just really recognizing that every action, large or small, is victory. And you use that as an incentive to keep moving forward. Now, despite our very best efforts, you may still feel unbalanced at times. You may still feel worried about work, worried about kids, worried about health, worried about your finances, worrying about the future on many different levels. Every worry needs a plan. If you look at the worry and then come up with a plan to address it, including how you're going to address it, when you're going to address it, sometimes that can help the worry from becoming all encompassing. The people who you work with, your family, you, yourself, we all want answers about the future. And sometimes there are not definitive answers, especially with COVID. We've all been hit with a serious dose of uncertainty. But it was actually during, well, not that we're out of it yet, but it was kind of in the thick of it. There was this article from the Wall Street Journal about control. And similar to what I talked about with respect to things that you can and cannot control, the writer talked about this list about what I can control and what I can't control. And he encouraged people to make this list and divide it in half. And on one side, write down the things that you cannot control. So, with respect to COVID, it was, when a vaccine would come, or the economy, or a challenging family member. And then on the other side was things that you can control. So wearing a mask, or how you react to a particular family member. Your attitude is something that you can control. So you make this list. And then what the author said is rip the page in half, crumple up the side of the things that you can't control, and toss it aside. And as I was reading the article, I just kind of found it to be such a grounding exercise, because it's really kind of just saying, you're going to release some of the stuff that you can't control and make more room for the stuff that you can. So I think with that, we are at the end. Alana, there's a number of slides here that do have this information. Is there a way that you will be able to get that to the people who are joining? Otherwise, I can go through it slowly and people can try and take pictures. What do you recommend?
Well, we will be posting the slides on our website, but I can also directly email just those last two slides, if you like, to the attendees today.
Yeah, and whatever works for you. It's good with me.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions. I guess it's a quiet group today. But I want to thank you so much, Elaine, for a very insightful and very informative presentation. A lot of useful and good information there. I do see something in the Q&A. I think someone's responding to wanting the slides. So saying that would be great. So yes, no problem. And someone in the chat, thank you for taking the time, Elaine. And that comes from Jen. So yes, thank you again,
Pleasure.
Elaine.